Which son is in use?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't hear anything about it, Paul. I didn't see anything.
Oh, the new park?
I don't know.
Oh, that's where she was at this afternoon?
I didn't see her. I was talking about something else. I didn't know she was like on
Oh,
paparazzi
wait.
and everything.
Wait, she was doing the big stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I just saw her picture.
Yes, I spoke too soon.
That's what I thought you were talking
No,
about.
I was talking about her other outings and
Oh,
paparazzis behind her and
really?
everything.
Because I'm pretty sure I saw her smiling face in here.
Okay.
With Miss Amy Clark. Gosh, you guys. I need new glasses. I can't read.
Not that I
Yes.
have one.
And I
Yeah?
think, oh, wait, she's wearing the same outfit
Oh,
and everything.
really?
Yeah. I can't see anymore. I need to get new
Oh,
glasses.
you? What do you mean?
You know what? I have a this one. Good for you. I'm not proud of it. See, there she is. Got the city council people.
Good deal. I didn't even
Yeah, for the
River. Okay, that was the motion that they made earlier. They was talking about city council were discussing it last time I told them they were discussing this park right here. Oh my goodness.
because we might be live and I try not to.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's some things. I know. I have friends that listen.
Might wake up on Sunday morning and not have it. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's all.
I'm trying to think. One of the guys from I've been going home all the time. I'm actually here because I'm settling up mom's. She's still alive, but her estate.
Oh, I see.
Closing all that down. Anyway, and so now she's like, what do I do? I have
Oh, I hate to hear stuff like that. I hate to hear stuff like that. It's just,
that's what she's always wanted to do. You know, she wasn't making big money. She could have done something else and made better money, but that's what she wanted to do. And now she's stuck out there with an apartment. I mean, what do you do?
so what do you do? And she can't be the only one, so a lot of people got to be in predicament.
A lot of people.
Hello, you. I'm good. Long time no see. Yeah. Saturday. Yeah. I'm going to be. I'm going to be out of town. Okay. This will be a whole lot. Oh yeah. Yeah, you should be. It's a lot of fun.
Michael, are there any paper agendas tonight?
What's that?
Paper agendas tonight?
Oh, yeah, hang on, I'll get them.
Okay.
Sorry. Megan handles, does she always put one up there?
Yeah, she's
Usually.
really good to us.
Okay.
We're spoiled.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You're excellent. You shine in different ways.
Wow.
I'm a teacher.
That was good. Yep. Oh. All right.
Oh, do you want me to come down and grab them?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
makes me nervous. And it makes me feel too powerful in a way that I think I'd like too much. I'm like balancing a lot. I know you are. All right, at 7:04, I'm going to call the meeting to order. All right, starting with attendance. Jennifer, I actually don't know your last name.
Boyd, and I'm
Jennifer
here.
Boyd, great. Bess Bailey, Kathy West,
Here.
Martin Newton,
Here.
and Anitra Hamilton.
Here.
And any guests?
Sarah Shekels, Snake Saturday liaison.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, moving on with our agenda, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve our February 13th meeting?
Motion to approve. Approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to any comments from the public. All right, we'll keep moving right into our next piece, municipal code language updates. Would someone who has worked on this like to introduce it? Because I have worked a lot on it. All right, so as you see, we've been working on municipal code updates, and there are two things attached. The first thing you will see is our updated letter to council, and then below that are my proposals for the title changes. Right now they're saved as PDFs, and it's brought to you tonight to vote on to take to city council next week. So one, has everyone had a chance to review it? And two, let's go ahead and put it up for discussion first. Does anyone have any questions about it or want to discuss it before we vote on it?
We went through a certain section of certain block. We didn't complete the entire code. I think we're about 2/3 of the way there. Are we, Beth? A little bit farther than that, maybe.
Yeah, so we have covered 1, 2, for sure, 4. 3 and yeah, there wasn't really much in 3 or 4. 5 was alcohol code, I believe. Sorry, I'm working off my brain. There was minimal in 8, and then 9 is where the majority of our work took place over the weekend. And then there's a few things that are more blanket coverage at the top, including language for the preamble. So if you want to take a minute, look on the first column to the right, left, is the code number. In the next column over, it is the title as it currently reads. In the third column towards the right, sorry, I'm really struggling with directions. The farthest column to the right is the suggested change we have, questions about it or the general rationale for why it should be taken out, changed, or something else suggested. And then again, going back up to the very top, and I explained this all in the letter to City Council, it explains where we got language suggestions from. Those are from GLAD and a journalistic reference for language about disabilities. And then there's a couple other statements about things we would like want to change at the very top. So that kind of orients you to the document. If there's any other questions about the document from you all as well, I'd love to answer those, and then anyone who's worked on it.
Right. If I may, I apologize. I didn't introduce Tom Barzee, for those of you who don't know, our city councilor. It is, per the committee, he was asked to attend tonight to answer questions and give advice towards some of this. So I just wanted to, in case you were wondering who it was sitting over here, he's our expert on all things code.
We did have a discussion. That would be some information that he could actually. Yeah, there were several subjects that we had concerning something that he could actually answer.
Well, let's start here. Are there any things you see that are absolutely, nope, can't do this, no way, no how, based on our class or our classification as a Class 3 city? Sorry, I'll speak closer and slower. I talk very fast. Is there anything you saw in our proposed changes that automatically cannot happen based on our classification as a Class 3 city? Please do.
For years, I practiced law here in North Kansas City with a lawyer by the name of Preston Williams, who before me was the city councilor. I'm the first one to be here full-time for the last number of years, but I've represented the city now for, counting the time with him, for over 40 years. Let me, if I could, let me give you some understanding of how municipal law works so that, I'm not saying you don't know, but for example, we're a third-class city. And, when you hear stuff on the news all the time, it seems like if it deals with a city, about 90% of the time it's with Kansas City, Missouri, okay? And they are a constitutional charter city, and things operate a little bit differently under a charter as opposed to us being in a third-class city. And that's significant in this respect. There's a legal principle that is called Dillon's Rule, okay? The only reason it's called that is it was named after a judge many years ago that was up in Iowa. It's kind of a nationally recognized thing. And basically, what Dillon's Rule says is we, in this case as a third-class city, can only do those things which the state has specifically authorized us to be able to do, or any reasonable extension of that or reasonable interpretation. Kansas City, on the other hand, can do basically anything it wants except those things that the state tells it cannot do. So you can see they have a much broader ability to do things than we do. And often, in fact, we are preempted by either federal or state law from doing things. The other broad topic I would like to mention is this, is what my role is. I'd say one of my biggest responsibilities to the city of North Kansas City is to do what I can to try to keep us out of litigation. And as these people sitting at this table know, maybe Sarah doesn't know it fully, but the other 3 people clearly do, and that is civil litigation sometimes can get very expensive. Sometimes, a matter of public record, sometimes to the tune of in excess of $100,000 a month. So it's really incumbent upon me to make sure we try to do things that avoid litigation. Okay? The chart that I saw for the first time here late this afternoon, just so you know, this Thursday's the Thursday before our agenda goes out for the council tomorrow, and as Mike will tell you, much of what's on the agenda has to go through me. And so, meaning there's things that I have to draft, ordinances, resolutions, and sometimes contracts. I'm not making an excuse, but when I got that this afternoon, I really didn't have a chance to look at it. I will say this, I did take a look at the memo to the mayor and the council. And something, thanks, Marcia. What's being suggested in there, the next to the last paragraph there, something along those lines in a preamp, I can see something along those lines being added. I'll be candid with you, and it would not be, I don't think, a problem. Without having looked at your table, and I appreciate all the work that you've done, and rightfully so. I'm sure some of the ordinances, code provisions that are in there go back well before I was born, and I wasn't born yesterday, okay? And so they go back a long time, and I think there's no question about that. But let me explain what the process is, without having looked at them, so there's no criticism here. But remember what we need to be able to, what we will need to do. First of all, there will be a need to determine on each of these what the legislative history is. In other words, see if we can determine, well, why was that ordinance enacted to begin with? Sometimes it's something that none of us would, including me, would think about. Oh, well, that sheds a little bit different light. Maybe we can clean it up a little bit, but we better not throw it away. Then there's going to be a need for, assuming the mayor and council direct us to at least to move forward with looking at it, and you're only 2 folks, but I have no reason to doubt that they would say, yeah, let's move forward. Then the next step would probably be that staff from each of the departments would get together. We would let them all make a copy of it. You tell us how this may affect you. There are some things in here, not in what you've done because I don't know, but in the code, let me just tell you some things that you may not maybe think about. Some things are in the code because they have to be in the code. And what do I mean by that? From a reasonable standpoint, they really do. Some, for example, some of the code provisions affect this city's fire rating. And our fire rating can be, and I'm just grabbing one thing out of the sky. We're not going to talk about everything that could be in the code. But the fire rating then, if we don't have certain things covered, the same thing with we're in a floodplain. We have to have certain things covered, or you're not going to like it. Your insurance premiums are going to go up on your homes, for example. Some are in there because over the years they were determined to be those are things we don't want in our community. And you might say, why not? Because they affect property values of individual property owners. Okay? And so then we come to a broad topic I do want to talk about a little bit also, because I think it deals directly with probably what is some of the things that are in what you've said, and that is, because from the legal profession, this is a little bit different. Don't think anything that I say should reflect what my personal leaning should be politically or even legally. But back to the concept that I need to make sure the city try to avoid litigation. One of those things is in contracts, for example, or in ordinances or code provisions, we need to avoid ambiguity. Okay? Now, where's that directly related here? To the public and how we refer to people and things, maybe not so much. In legal documents, there are even cases that talk about it, certain pronouns have legal meanings to them. Okay? And as a result, we try to, it's important that we watch how they are used, because if they lead to ambiguity, for example, in a contract, then we end up in litigation over something that maybe we didn't need to be in litigation over, that it wasn't worth having a big fight over something. Or, worse yet, it makes a contract that we wanted to see enforced unenforceable in some way. So we need to go through that process as well to make sure. Now, you might think, well, Tom, I mean, what do you do? I just, knowing I was coming here tonight, in a contract that I was working on today, this very day. In fact, hopefully it'll be out to bid tomorrow. Right, Sarah? Yes, it's the one you got a copy of. But in contracts, when we bid something, and I drafted the contract, because we're bidding it at that stage, we assume that everybody decides to read the contract. So I tried to include language that, maybe reaches out a little bit further to accommodate things such as you folks might be interested in. But this is, I just printed out the one little paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, even though it's a fairly short paragraph. But this is in the contract that just went out today, and it was already in the contract before I didn't go in and add it today. It's something that I typically use, and it's really getting something, man. You get old, and you have to take your glasses off to read. It says, the title of it is Covenant Against Discrimination. In connection with its performance under the agreement, the contractor, the other side, shall not discriminate against any employee or applicant for employment because of actual or perceived race, religion, color, sex, age, marital status, ancestry, national origin, and then in parentheses it expands even on national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, physical or mental disability, or medical condition, each a prohibited basis. The contractor shall ensure that applicants are employed and that all employees are treated during their employment without regard to any prohibited basis, and that's any of these things. As a condition preceding to the city's lawful capacity to enter into this agreement, and in executing this agreement, the contractor certifies that its actions and omissions hereunder shall not incorporate any discrimination arising from or related to any prohibited basis, that was all those things I just read, in any contractor activity, including but not limited to the following, and it's pretty much everything: employee upgrading, demotion or transfer, recruitment or recruitment advertising, layoff or termination, rates of pay, or other forms of compensation, and selection for training, including apprenticeship. Okay? And that's, in a contract like this, apprenticeship's important because that's, if you're a member of the union, it kind of helps you as you move forward. And so I guess what I'm saying is, just keep in the back of your mind, it's not that we're necessarily going to be against something, but my guess is going to be, from a purely legal and perhaps staff standpoint, it's not going to, this won't work. But we'll try to, make sure that someone explains to you why something doesn't work. And not just say, no, we're not doing that, okay? That you folks have worked way too hard to go through this. And just to be given that, or even worse, because I heard this in a meeting that I was just in that didn't impress me from someone on the other side, when I said, can you explain this? Why do you want to do it this way? And you know what the answer was? Because I said so. Those kind of things, aren't usually good answers to people, and you folks have worked too hard. I can assure you of this. We'll try to give you some kind of an answer to all these things that you've done. I'm sure that there are a number of them that those changes can be made, okay? But realize this, even some old ordinances in our code that have been there for many years and people scratch their head, there could very well be a reason, and that's why we involve all the department heads. For example, community development, they may be interested in some of these things from a zoning standpoint, okay? And the police department, sometimes they need something to be able to rely upon, and I'm not talking about harassing people or anything like that, because having been around long enough, I can tell you this. What none of the people that sit on the city council or mayor like to see is when some action's been taken and then something happens and the room fills up with people all getting up here to speak about the action that was taken. And I have nothing in mind. It's not that I'm thinking, don't do this or that. But I have seen that absolutely happen. And here's what you folks need to keep in the back of your mind. This is not in the law books. It's just me being around for a number of years. Unfortunately, when you get that kind of a reaction en masse, councils tend to then overreact. The pendulum swings way too far than the other direction. And that usually isn't good either. I found over the years, when the pendulum's just kind of back and forth right in here, it's okay. But when we see it swing one way, I always say, well, it may be your way this time, but watch and see what happens if something goes wrong, because it will swing the other way then, big time. So I can assure you we will look at that. I think it's fair to say we will be looking at them, and at some stage you'll get an answer. But I wouldn't to each thing, but I wouldn't expect it to be real quick. Okay, because it's taken you a while to get to this point. Then we need to go back through some procedure and get input from. You might think it's weird, but I'd want input on at least some of the things that you've gone through here from the fire department even. Okay? They, for example, operate our ambulances, and there may be a reason that something's in the code for them. And you might not think, well, I don't see any reason to add that here. So I'm sorry I've just rambled here, but I thought it's my one opportunity to get up. And, my partner used to say, never pass up an opportunity to make a speech. So do you folks have any questions while I'm I'm here. I'm going to stay for the rest of your meeting. I'm not rude. I'm not going to leave, but if you have any while I'm here, I'll be glad to try to answer them. But again, I have not read your work except for that, your cover memo.
Thank you so much for the context. That's really
Sure.
helpful to understand. And I don't want you to go into setting up your review in like thinking we have deleted so many people, like we want to get rid of it all. We want to start over. That is not our intention. We went through our process thinking, where are definitions limited? And since this has been written, where have they been expanded? One example I can think of really clearly is the use of seeing eye dog. I think that was written in 2000, maybe before that. And previously, seeing eye dogs were just about it. That was like what you recognized. However, now we have seizure alert dogs. We have gluten sniffing dogs for our celiac friends. We have blood sugar dogs for our diabetic friends. There are so many other categories, and we want to make sure our friends in the medical community who need their service animals are also protected. Those are the kinds of things we looked for, so that's one of our examples.
And you know what? That's helpful to do that as well. You know, if you see something, remember, I don't know that I can tell you this. I've never read the code from cover to cover. You know, I'm lucky that I've read the United States Constitution from beginning to end, but, you know, to read the city code, well, you folks now know well how thick it is. You've probably been using it online, but the bottom line is it's not a thin book. And there certainly, if you see anything in there, even if it's a grammatical mistake, go ahead and you might think that's too picky. No, that's the only way we're going to figure it out. And since you're going through it anyway, even if you have no problem with it, but it was poor grammar, let us know. We may as well clean up some of those things. There's no reason not to do that. Is that okay, Mike? To clean up the whole thing? I mean, if they see hypothetically there's a grammatical mistake or something. And remember, most of those, even though there are a number of them in there that yours truly drafted, no question about it, most of those were pre my time even. Okay, so I appreciate what you're doing, though. I mean, certainly. And yes, and things like that, those will be easier things to take care of, what you just mentioned as an example, the seeing eye dog situation. And it's not just that today. You know, we have animals that do this, that, or whatever for people. I can't imagine that that's a problem. It certainly isn't. I don't see any legal problem with accommodating that. Absolutely not. But I know back a number of years ago, many years ago, I remember a big discussion on number of animals that people had. And sometimes that does, in most communities, get to be potentially a problem. You know, you don't want your neighbor's house to become the local dog pound for, 37 dogs. Okay?
That is also included, and that was another piece we mentioned, should seeing or guide animals or service animals be considered part of that, since technically they're working animals, and should that count against your
Maybe.
total number? The answer's 4.
That's the kind of discussion, if it's not a legal thing, that's the great thing about it. I can step back, and then I point to these two folks, and then they can have their discussion as a council as a whole.
Yeah, and if we're
Okay.
using FAA as precedent, then they say medical things don't apply. So then I guess you could have 5 dogs in a house.
Yes.
And that's the way we're kind of looking at things, is what
Yes.
seems reasonable.
It's one thing that I was a little bit concerned about, and that's what I talk about the use. Let's be real candid about he, she, they, etc. Those can be very problematic in both statutes and in contracts. Okay? Now, if you read most of my contracts, you won't see he's or she's or they's in it. Why? Because every contract that we have is with an it, a corporation, an LLC, okay? It's not a real person. It's considered a legal entity, just as a human being is. But, so, the contracts that we draft, that we can keep those pretty much that way. We don't usually have to use those. But it's this, that there have already been cases about the ambiguity, for example, in using "they," okay, when you really are only referring to Martin over here. And, you know, in spite of what you might refer to yourself as, in a contract, it's not, the word is not interpreted that way. Okay? Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Any other discussion from our wonderful people up here?
Much of the, a majority of the things that we went over were concerning outdated language, and such as he and she and those pronouns. A lot of that came up. Oh, sure. Sure. A lot of that came up, and the preamble, which is at the top of the page, that should take care of a lot of those issues, specifically the ones that you just mentioned. But as I said, much of the changes and the suggestions for changes were outdated terms and so forth and so on. But your point is well taken, and again, thanks for making us aware of that, the legal ramifications of what we do and what we're doing.
All right, if there's no longer any more discussion, let's go ahead and move into our,
Okay, I will say this, as someone who likes to keep the train on tracks and moving along. One, thank you so much for your insights, because that provided wonderful context, and I think definitely some things that we need to consider and to keep in mind. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your time and your thoughts. I would say for this group you included, it would be nice to know what next steps either should or can be taken at this point. I don't believe that like the full code has been reviewed like fully, right? So that's still a work in progress, which is perfectly fine. But with what we do have presented to us, is this something that you can now review, and does it need to go to council first with just the overall intent of what needs to be done, or will we then be involving the different department heads and whatnot for their perspectives?
In fairness, though, that was just Tom Barzee up there speaking, and I haven't discussed it, as you well know, with the council, and I haven't even discussed it with Mike, okay, and nor the mayor. And, between Mike and the mayor, they're the ones that seem to get things on the agenda, and rightfully so, I might add. Anything I've asked to be on, I don't think I've ever been turned down, but the point is, I don't know, I'd want to kind of talk to and get some input from some of the other department heads as well, just to see what they might think is the best approach to do this. I would say this is, again, just me speaking. I think just from seeing what Sarah has here, a number of pages, as you explained it, I think, there's probably enough here at this stage to get at least a start, so that, well, besides that, let's be real candid about it. I don't want you folks to go all the way through the end of the code and then a majority of the council decides not to do anything. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do that, okay? No, but I'd rather get you maybe, let's see how this is going and see the direction, because it might help as you go through the rest. Okay, we see how they, and that means the governing body, okay? Governing body, by the way, in case you're ever, it's defined as the city council and the mayor. That's the governing body, okay? When we refer to city council, it's just them without the mayor. his role is to preside, and his role is to break ties in voting, and he has, in third-class city, he does have the statutory right to veto. Very infrequently used in these 40 years, but I have seen it used a couple of times. So I don't know, Mike, we can kind of talk about it, but I think there's enough here to at least, I mean, I would want to at least read through it without doing any research, just to see, okay, what are you folks talking about? What do you want to, what are you recommending? And,
I
you know,
share
if
my
it's
thought
things like the
process?
seeing eye dogs, if there are other things like that, those things are usually, it takes a little bit of time to get maybe it drafted, but there might be some things that we could take out of here pretty quickly and have a change in the code more quickly than some of the others where it might be, you know, a discussion that really needs to be had. If you do that, you understand X will happen. And that, I don't see where that's a problem in something like, again, that's the one thing that I'm aware of because you brought it up. But something like that, I think a little bit of discussion internally, something like that, you know, we could see, yeah, we can move forward with doing something like that. There will probably be some in here that will probably, from a staff standpoint, we'd say either A, legally it's a problem, or B, from an operational standpoint or something that someone's unaware of, it's a problem. You know, that, you know, us being in a designated flood zone, we're required to have that there. And we also, just so you know, the other broad thing that this city deals with, okay, that a lot of cities don't. Two big things. This city has one sacred cow that I'm aware of. The sacred cow is our levee, okay? Without the levee, we are no city, okay? And secondly, anytime we look at something that's, and this is in a broad sense, there are exceptions, but when we look at things south of Armour Road, we automatically have a discussion about, is there an environmental concern here? Okay? Because this city, as you know, was born as an industrial city. Okay? And we have to look at those couple of things. So there could be something in here that we have to have from an environmental standpoint, that we have to have in here from we're going to have one on the council, on the agenda, where on Tuesday night, an ordinance approving a stormwater detention area that must continue to be maintained. And we're wanting the developer that has to agree to maintain it, not just build it, but to keep it maintained, and therefore the document will have to be recorded, so when the property is sold someday, it goes with the land. And, you know, so we have things in the code that deal with things like that, and some people may say, why in the heck's that in the code? And that's the reason. Did that sort of, I answered way more than you asked.
You did, but that was mainly a question to set expectations of the actions that will be taken after this, right? So just moving forward, and knowing that there will be some internal discussions, and based on those internal discussions, then things can progress forward. So thank you.
So my intention for actions moving forward, because this is what we were charged to do with our charter, is to, one, we were doing this, and we needed to round it up. It is on paper now. It's on paper. The reason I wrote the memo to City Council and got it to you on Wednesday, which I hope was in time, ish, yes, was to then take it, get it submitted for City Council meeting on next week, so that I could say, hey, this is what we've done. Is this the direction you guys are happy with us going? Because I believe we got positive feedback from the last time we presented at city council, because we haven't really said anything to them before. So now we have a product. We say, this is the work we want to do. These are the type of changes we'd like to make. Are you happy with us moving forward? Or is this something you're not even interested in moving forward with? And then, to be clear, I don't know the next steps, which is why I said, and then figure out the next, or seek next steps, or figure out what the next steps need to be so that we can continue to move forward with it. That is my intention. If someone has different intentions or knows better than me, I'm so happy to seek for help. I'm just not sure what they need to be. And if that sounds different than what someone else was planning on doing, again, I would love the help in that, because I make really good charts in Google Docs, but that's really the extent. And I can go talk, because I've worked hard on this, but the next steps are where I'm lost.
I think your point was taken. So it seems like what we need to do now is dwell a little bit and let them come up with at least read over it, at least review it. City council and everybody else review it, and that way we'll know if we're going in the right direction or whatever. I think that's what her question was. Where is this a good stopping point? Is this a good point so that this information could be combed over and let us go and see if we are going in the right direction? So I think, to your point, that's pretty good.
So yes, go to the city council meeting, say this is what we've done. Keep going, or yes, we go to the next steps. No, this is trash, try again. To city council.
I'd say wait.
So say, get me removed from the agenda.
No.
Okay.
I'd say keep everything where we have it now. We stand and wait and let them comb over it a little bit to see if this is the right direction where we're going. Then we go on from there to continue. In other words, let's stop going over this.
Yes. So
Let's stop.
pause here, but
Yes.
still go, am I on the agenda for the next city council meeting?
No, I apologize. I didn't understand. No. You sent it yesterday, and we got it on this agenda,
Got it.
but I didn't understand. It hadn't gone through EIC. At that point, no motion, no approval or anything, so I couldn't put it on there yet.
Got it.
And
Because we talked about if I got it to you and we voted on it tonight, would we still be able to put it? And you said, yes, we could squeak it in.
right
at our last meeting.
Right, at the last meeting, the committee asked for Tom to kind of draft a preamble and then come tonight and talk to you all. So I apologize if I didn't catch that, but
Yeah.
I thought that was the whole intent of Mr. Barzee being here tonight, was to talk about a preamble and kind of how to review code and kind of what he did talk about. But I didn't catch that there would be a recommended preamble tonight to go to
Well,
council.
no, we didn't talk about a recommended
Okay.
preamble. We talked about having the first 10 done.
Yes.
Voted on by us and then ready to take 2.
Okay.
So no, I am not on city, because that's why we had 2 sessions in this month, is to
Right.
get this ready to vote on and go to city council with.
So the other part to that is Mr. Barzee won't be there Tuesday night, and it might be a tough position for city council to have recommendations to code, but not have their counselor there to speak to it.
But that's not what we're asking. That was not my intention of asking. My intention of what I would ask city council is this the direction you want us to move in? Or is this not the intention you had set up for us when you passed the ordinance for EIC? So I'm not asking city council for a vote. I'm just saying, is this the direction you want us to go in as far as reviewing city code? Like, should we keep doing this type of work?
Okay. Well, I'll put you on. That I can throw, yeah. Just a discussion then.
Yeah.
Um,
And then if that's
I
what
just-
we're choosing to do we need to vote on it?
mhm. Okay. Yeah, I can put them all on. Right, the tough, that haven't been reviewed by, that would be the, okay, yeah. It'll be on there.
In terms of the timeline, this gives us time, I think, for the next weeks, maybe month, actually, to have the administrative people take a look at it and then come back with that response and give you a concrete items to deal with. And we'll also have a new council coming on in April. And I don't see any problem with that going forward, but in terms of procedure, we could, then that vetted document can be presented to them. But we can have a discussion on the preamble. And is that the direction that the council wants to continue? Are you doing what the council created, exactly as you said? I think that would be the steps forward, so that we don't lose time, but we don't get ahead of ourselves, and at the same time, we don't get this buried, as can happen in city government. Things can get buried and take a long time because other priorities come up, but it is a priority, and the council can indicate that.
Sorry, as I'm going to put this on, in your Google Doc, it says need language Michael sent to legal counsel, but what language, that's where I'm missing that.
I thought Marcia sent you a drafted preamble that you sent to council.
Preamble, it was code. No? Okay, I got to go back and, because I mean, I definitely had the night of, I think, the meeting or the next morning, sent Tom an email saying, hey, they've requested your presence to work on all of that. Okay.
I could have been wrong, but Marcia, I thought you wrote a preamble. Because you're here. I can ask you questions. Hi.
Yeah, I am here. No, I did not.
Okay. Did you read an example of what a preamble could be?
Yes.
Okay. It would have been Daniel or Ryan. Is there?
So there were three of us working on that, me and Daniel and Marcia. The three of us were working on it. We did not draft a preamble, and Daniel did not give us a lot of response on what he was thinking at the time either when we were working on it. So I have not seen a formal preamble.
Yeah, so there was not a formal preamble that was constructed or stitched together. I had a very, very basic example of what one could cover, but it was not, like to the point that it was actually written out and whatnot, so.
Either way, this will be on the regular agenda for Tuesday night, and we'll put both of these in here. Yeah.
And also, since we are taking more time, if it's too late, that is also fine. If we want to introduce is there a length requirement on a preamble? If there's not, I drafted an example, like one we could use.
I'll say this, from what I understand, preambles it's something short, sweet, to the point, maybe 2, potentially 3 sentences. It does not have to, the function is not to be long, right? It's supposed to be a quick in and out, here's what we're addressing, and you move on.
Then does anyone want to read? Will someone read the preamble suggested in the memo, please? And then we could vote on that we could vote on that as an option if we want to use that as a preamble. It's the the EIC police or something like that. That paragraph.
Okay. It is our belief in the City of North Kansas City that all individuals are entitled to identify as they determine is right for themselves. Because of that ideal, anytime pronouns he, she, him, or her are mentioned, that should be interpreted as all people living, working, and enjoying life in the city of North Kansas City.
Is there a motion?
A motion to use that language.
Will that cover most of the stuff that we went over, like the pronoun terms and so forth and so on? Then I make a motion to go. I make a motion to.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a question.
Sorry, I should have opened that for discussion first. So let's rewind. I'm going to open it for discussion.
So the main focus would be just to changing the pronouns, but if we are able to go forward with making the edits within the municipal code, that does not include this.
Right. This is just the kind of at the beginning of the city code to say, we recognize that in the code itself, it says he, she, her, him, but that is not limiting on to how you identify with yourself.
Got
That
it.
is just the code, and you should take it as however you identify yourself, you are included.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Now, is there a motion?
Motion. I make a motion to go forward.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right. Does that move us forward with municipal code language? Going once? Twice? I'm making eye contact. Does that move us? Are we done with municipal code language?
Yeah. And may I
At everyone in the eyes.
Yes,
for it.
yes. I apologize, did not get Snake Saturday on here, but Sarah Shekels is here to provide some information on this Saturday. Just, I didn't want that to get skipped over.
Number 5.5, Sarah Shekels with Snake Saturday. We'll move to that next.
Beautiful.
All right, Sarah, go ahead.
Hello. Okay, so we've got the truck ready. It's mostly decorated. I'll be putting some finishing touches on that tomorrow. We will have some time also Saturday morning for, I don't know who all is coming and walking and participating, but we can add a little to that as well Saturday morning. We're in section B, and the time frame for that is 8:45 to 9:30. So I will have the truck in our designated staging area in that time frame, probably shooting for like 9 o'clock. And then parade doesn't start until 11. So we'll have a couple of hours in our staging area to put any final touches on, to get candy ready. I'll be getting that tomorrow. I don't have that yet. We've got the 2 bubble machines. We tested them out. When they're full, great. They're great. When they're full, they'll last for 22 minutes before they have to be refilled. So we'll need to get some solution ready for refilling. And we've got 3 of the handheld wands. They're great. They shoot the bubbles. They play a little music. They're really good. Same thing. We didn't test that out to empty, so I don't know how long they'll last. But again, we'll be able to refill them as needed. So I don't know if you have any specific questions or anything, but that's where we're at.
I hate that I'm going to miss it, actually. Love a parade. But you mentioned the staging area. Do you already know the exact location of the staging area so that people can meet there?
Yes. So I have the map here, and I can email. Yeah, I can email that out to everyone. So we're number 27, section B. So basically, to enter the staging area, you have to enter section B at 10th and Swift. So basically, they're by Hogjaw at that light. And then you'll head north, and you'll see they'll have the sections spray painted on the ground, and it'll be like B1, 2, 3, and then as the further north you go, and then C after that. So when you enter, you'll just continue walking until you get to B27, and that's pretty much where we'll be. So that they're security-wise, it's very particular. You can only enter at 10th and Swift. Now, let me double check because that may just be the vehicles. I mean, if you're just coming on foot, you may be able to walk, you know what I mean? You don't have to. Yeah, it looks like that's just for, you can only have up to 2 vehicles. No parking or drop-offs in the staging areas, so you won't be able to drive onto Swift, into the staging area. So either if you're walking from home or if you're going to park further south and then walk, you can do that. But you won't be able to get into any of the areas where the streets are closed with your vehicles. I think that's pretty standard. So, how many do we have? Is anybody here going to be there? Yes, excellent. Kathy? No? Okay. All right.
I'll have my niece with me as
Yes.
well.
Oh, yay. All right. And Simon will be there. So, yeah, we should have plenty. I'll be driving, and then however you guys want to divvy up handing out candy. If I will say, I don't have anything to put really the candy into. So if you have like something like a pail or a container, I can always get bags. But if you have something that may work a little better, I'm open to suggestion or ideas. But I didn't have anything specifically.
I have 3 Halloween buckets at home. Anyone can borrow if they would like.
Perfect. That
I'll
that's
have
kind of
Tom
what I was
drop 'em
thinking.
by your house?
Yeah, you can drop them by there.
I'll have Tom put them on the porch.
Yeah, you can drop them off here too if it's like during the day. So either way is fine. Shoot me a message. Yeah. So, any other Snake Saturday questions?
Not necessarily for you. I will
Thanks for doing this.
ask this wonderful group. Okay, so I did secure a photographer or 2, including myself, to be at the parade. So, how would you like that to look? Would you like for it only to capture EIC, or would you like it throughout for the entire parade? Because at this point we can split up, we can do whatever, but what was the thinking behind that so I can be prepared?
I think let your heart decide. I think this was a long shot, and I'm so thankful that you did that. And if we get just EIC, great. And if you get EIC and people and other parts of the parade, great. And if all of them are blurry because you're so excited, that's fine too. I mean it with all of my soul.
Okay, so I'm going to say this from a photography perspective. I'll probably just have the one additional person, like in the crowd, like be able to see the parade, get different shots. I will probably stick with you all for at least a little bit for the staging, and then part of us walking so I can get some action shots and whatnot. So that is what we'll do.
Any other news for 5.5?
Say, if I remember this, Stephen, our IT director, who's back doing the film right now, I think after the meeting, he might come out and just fill you all in. We did create, much like the Google Doc, but on our system. And we also have created city emails for all of you. So it's not your personal email. But he can explain how to, it'll take a little work with him, but he'll get a hold of you and you know, whether it's a phone call, but just to set up the time to walk you through the password and stuff like that. But I think after the meeting, he's going to come out and just, so don't run off, please.
Perfect. All right, let's move us into council member liaison, city council updates.
Don't have one. However, the issue of preambles, it makes some changes to the code, such as what the meanings that we want to give to these terms. So it sets a sort of a position paper in front of the various ordinances and so forth of the city. Now, this one particularly deals with gender, but there are others that we might want to write, again, brief, few sentences each in terms of things like physical ability, language, ethnicity, and things like that to give a, before the people even look at the codes, just our general attitude about inclusion within the city of North Kansas City. Age, all of those factors. So I would recommend having maybe 2 or 3 different, or maybe 4 or 5, short sentences describing each of those particular aspects, so that it gives a flavor of what, at least at the city at this time, intends. Those things change over time. They always do. But we're making a statement for now. That's about it.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
I will also just say thank you for your time, diligence, energy, effort. Thank you.
March is Women's History Month, so to all strong women, may we love them, may we raise them, and may we keep them in power. All right, if there are no other announcements at 8:07, I call this meeting over.